Hello and welcome to THP tutorials. In this episode, we'll be discussing research methods, right? We'll be taking a look at the seventh unit, and that's introduction to sampling, right? So this is the part one of this video. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, turn on the post notifications so that when the other parts of this video come out, you'll be the first to get it. All right, let's begin. So in this part, we'll be looking at relevant concepts. When we talk about sampling, what are some of the concepts that need to be understood? We look at the importance of sampling, right? Why the researcher needs to do sampling, and we'll look at how to obtain a representative sample. Now we will also look at sampling techniques, right? We will have an introduction into the techniques used for sampling, and in the other parts we'll go deeper. So without saying more, let's begin. So what are the relevant concepts? You have population, census, and sample. Now, when we talk about population, it refers to the entire group of individuals or elements that share a common characteristic and are subject of a study. It is the larger group to which the research findings are intended to be applied. Right. So what I want you guys to do is think of population as the universal set, right? It's the universal set, it's the mother set, right? So if you wanted to conduct a research on how smartphones are beneficial to human beings, your population will be every human being who is using a smartphone. Okay, I'm getting the picture. Very good. So let's look at what a census is, right? Now, a census involves collecting data from every individual or element in the entire population. It is a complete enumeration rather than a sample. So sometimes population and census are used interchangeably, right? And that's why they are basically the same thing, right? When you have a census, you're talking about the whole population, right? And then which brings me to what a sample is. And a sample is simply a subset or a portion of the population. So we have about a sample is a subset of the population that is selected for the purpose of a study. It is chosen to represent the larger population, and conclusions drawn from the sample are generalized to the entire population. Right, so population is a universal set, and a sample is a subset of the population. Census and population can be used interchangeably. So whenever you see census, it's talking about population. Very well. So now that we have taken a look at the relevant concepts when we're talking about sampling, let's look at what sampling itself is. What is sampling itself? But before you do that, let's take a look at practical examples of the relevant concepts that we discussed. So for population, we said that if a researcher is studying the sleep habits of all adults in a particular city, the population would be all adults living in that city. The same, so you're studying the sleep habits of all adults in a particular city. So the population would be all adults living in a particular city. If you're doing a research study about all adults, about the sleep habits of all adults in the world, your population will be all the adults who are in the world. That's basically it. Now look at census. So that if the government conducts a census of all households in a country, it means they collect information from each and every household to gather a comprehensive overview of the entire population. So it's simply, when you talk of census, you are taking into account the entire population right? Anything that has a quality that matches the criteria specified will be added, right? So, sample. If a researcher wants to study the opinions of voters in a country, they might select a sample of 1,000 voters from different regions and demographics as a representative subset of the entire voting population, right? So it's like in Ghana here, you wanna know the opinions of the voters, right? You don't just go to Accra and take your you go to other 16 or so regions, right? Accra, so Western region, Northern region, Volta region, and you take a sample from all these parts, right? So now what's sampling, right? Sampling refers to the techniques that enable you to reduce the amount of data you need to collect by considering only data from a subgroup rather than all possible cases or elements. Some research questions will require sample data to generalize about all the cases from which your sample has been selected. Hence, you would still want your sample to be representative of the population from which it was drawn. Right? So you know what sampling is, right? So it's simply reducing the amount of data you need to collect, right? From a sub by considering only data from a subgroup than all possible cases or elements. So it's the same thing that we've been saying from the beginning, right? So now in every research you have a population. In certain research, it is possible for you to take data from all your from the population, or use data or collect data from the census. But in some cases, it is impossible. Imagine if you want to know the sleep habits of adults in the world. You cannot ask every adult in the world and be questioning them and gathering data, right? So you obviously have to, use a sample. Now, in using that sample, you have to make sure that all parts of the population are represented, right? So if you wanted information about the sleeping habits of adults in the world, you don't just go to Africa and you take 100 from Ghana, 100 for Nigeria, and then you say that you are going to do your research. No, you have to find a way to spread it out, right, across all the continents. So by doing so, every quota of the population has been represented in your sample. Now, when you have your data from that sample, you can say that it is representative of the whole population. So we can use that to make inferences about the population. Right. So what's the importance of sampling, right? Sampling provides a valid alternative center. Tea break. I'm getting tired. So sampling, sampling provides a valid alternative census when it would be impracticable for you to survey the entire population, right? When you cannot survey the entire population, then sampling is your go-to solution. When your budget constraints prevent you from surveying the entire population, you don't get money, right? When your time constraints, you don't have time to sample the entire population. 4. You have collected all data but need the results quicker than census analysis will allow you. So that's another reason. Maybe you have been able to gather your data from the census, but now it's too much for you to analyze. So you just take samples and you perform your analysis, right? So now, how do we obtain a representative sample? The steps to follow are: 1. You define your target population. What is your target population? Your target population is the people or the complete group of objects or elements relevant to the research project. They are relevant because they possess the information the research project is designed to collect. So in the topic that we were discussing earlier about what the sleeping habits of adults in the world, or your population will be all sleeping adults who are in the world. Why? Because they have the information that you need. From defining the target population, you choose the sampling frame. Your sampling frame is a complete list of all elements in the population from which your sample is drawn. It's a complete list of all the elements in the population from which the sample is drawn. So from there, you move on to what? Selecting the sampling method. You determine the sample size and then you implement the sampling plan. So we've talked about the target population. We've also talked about the sampling frame. So now in the next video, on the next series of videos, maybe 2 or 3 parts, we'll break down the next 3 steps. But first, an introduction into sampling methods, right? So these are the sampling techniques, and there are 2, or they can be divided into 2. You have probability or representative sampling, then you have non-probability sampling or judgmental sampling. So with the first one, the probability or representative sampling, what happens is that, hold on. Now, what happens is that in this method, or when using this technique, each member of the population has a known and equal chance of being selected. This ensures that the sample is representative of the entire population and allows for statistical inferences. Now, another term used to qualify this technique is called random sampling. It's done randomly, and we say that in probability or random sampling, the researcher's bias or the researcher's discretion and judgment do not affect the sampling process. So it's by chance, and every member of the population or every element in the population has the chance of being selected. They have equal chance of being selected, right? It's like those good old probability questions in statistics. And they ask you that, and say that a ball is drawn from a bag, right? It could be any ball in a bag can be drawn. So everyone has an equal chance, right? And the second one is non-probability sampling. Over here, you can guess that it's the opposite, right? So in this instance, it's not random, and the researchers' judgments and discretion affect the process. So non-probability sampling, also known as judgmental or purposive sampling, is a method where the selection of participants is based on the researcher's judgment or subjective criteria. This method does not guarantee that every individual in the sample has an equal chance of being included. And this is because why? The researcher sits down and uses their own mind or their own subjective criteria to determine who will have information that is relevant to the research. Very good. That's it for this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Yeah, I'll catch you in the next video, please. Thank you very much for watching. THE tutorials. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.